Good morning, or whatever time you decide to watch this video, and Happy New Year to you, because you will definitely be watching it after January 1st, since I shot it after January 1st, so that's how I know that. Not that I have special powers, it's that, I just use my reason of deduction and be like, well, hey, if I shot it after this time, it's not possible for me to watch a video before this time. Anyway, so as you have noticed, unless you've been living under a rock, there's been a huge culture shift when it comes to firearms rights, and I do believe it's ultimately going to take down the NFA. But before we dive into all that, there's one thing I do need to bring up, and that is only tech fans at Shopify.com. As you guys may or may not know, I am completely demonetized on YouTube, likely indefinitely, and that's how I'm supporting everything right now. I'm paying my bills. So if you'd like to pick up some cool merch, we don't have this shirt there anymore because obviously it's past 2024, but there is other cool merch there like morale patches, hats, beanies, and all that money goes to supporting this channel, and I will take every dollar I make from there, wad it up into a ball, and shove it directly into my bank account and help pay the bills and everything. And for those of you that have already shopped from there, thank you. Honestly, this whole struggle has been so much easier because of your guys' support there. Like, the road's pretty bumpy. You guys have just went through and just leveled those bumps right on out. And thank you. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for that. I believe as the Obama era rolled to an end, the anti-gun community really had us by the balls. They really, really did. After every single tragedy, they'd be on the news and they'd point at the casualties and be like, hey, the Second Amendment is this outdated hobby and it's costing Americans lives. We need to remove this hobby because it's costing Americans lives, not just Americans, children's lives. So let's all band together. Let's stand strong against the extremist right people that believe that the government's going to ultimately cause this huge problem and they're going to have to stand up against them, and let's get rid of firearms rights because it doesn't matter. It's just a hobby. They can buy a hamburger from the grocery store. They don't need to hunt for their own food. This is 2020, or let's wind back a little farther. This is 2018. You don't need to buy your own food. There's nothing a gun can do for you that modern technology can't. And that continued on. They really... I don't even know how to explain it. I'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh man, there's another post on the news, and yeah, it's effective. Like, I'm really starting to lose my ability. Aside from shall not be infringed, how do I argue that guns are still necessary? And then it all changed because we didn't need guns until we did. And what had happened is in 2020, boom, the riots are going on. Boom, the government is ordering people to do things like crazy things, telling businesses they can't operate anymore, telling you where you can and can't shop, ordering you to stay at your house. And a lot of people seen the reporting on the whole COOF thing as being one-sided and unrealistic. And the fact of the matter is, most people knew somebody that was viciously attacked because of their opinions on the government or how they were handling things, over knowing people that actually died from the virus. Like, you can pretty much talk to just about anyone and they'll have some sort of personal story about somebody being affected negatively, like doxxed or getting canceled on social media or having their social media account banned or their business shut down or their neighbor getting arrested for walking their dogs. Like, everybody has one of those stories. Very few people have, my great-grandmother died from this disease. There's a few, but the point is, people that have that story, people that have that story. And so basically what had happened is all this, what was considered paranoia before, has now become a reality. And people were going from gun shops like locusts. One gun shop after another. Boom, boom, boom. Just wiping out the inventory. They started with pistols, and then AR-15s, and then shotguns, and then hunting rifles, then hunting shotguns, then knives and pepper spray, just trying to defend themselves because they were terrified. They were watching the government just put its boot on the American people and just squash. And not just that, the riots backing that up, and that was happening in our backyard. I'm from Wisconsin, so we had Minnesota rioting, we had southern Wisconsin rioting. It freaked people out. Like, really, really bad. It's just unrecoverable. And I think that was the major switch. Because of that, that's where the Bruin decision came from. That's where a whole bunch of positive firearm stuff came from. Yeah, I still got caught up my whole case was definitely around censorship and the government putting their stranglehold on people. But because my case was already going, even though like I went to trial on that after the COVID and the government censorship and all that, they still swept me up because it was already going. They couldn't stop it at that point. Because remember, my co-defendant got picked up and it was late 2019, early 2020. So that was a huge switch. It opened people's eyes. It finally gave them an answer to the question, why would I need a firearm? Well, they're seeing it firsthand. And it was before like, hey, if you have a problem, the government's got you. If you need food, the grocery store's got you. And more relatable, if you need toilet paper, you know what? Walmart's got you. You only need 3 days worth of food. Don't worry about prepping. Don't worry about firearms. All that, oh, there could be some falling out or some civil unrest. Yeah, Katrina happened, but that's the exception. That was a localized event. Didn't really affect anyone except for people that strictly lived in Louisiana. Don't listen to those pro-gun people. Remember, the Second Amendment's just a hobby, and it's a hobby that's costing American lives. And people went with that until they didn't. And now they have a reason. Let's talk about the actual people that were coming in to buy these firearms. They were, without a doubt, anti-gun. I would hand them the firearm to inspect, and you could almost see them like vomit in their throat a little bit. Like, it was that bad. They're like, oh, but I need it. And then they're like trying to play, they don't even know what end the bullet comes out of. I did my duty though, because I felt as a person, it would be irresponsible for me to just sell somebody like that a firearm. So I'd take them out shooting, I'd let them try a bunch of different things. The body shock of it, and like the self-reliance they felt from it, you could see the little twinkle in their eye flip. I guarantee I was not the only gun shop in Wisconsin going through this. So, this probably happened across the entire state. And you would just see the little like switch flip in their eyes, like, oh, this went from an outdated hobby, yeah, the Second Amendment's just a hobby that's costing American lives, so I have a legitimate reason to have this firearm, and now that I understand the basic mechanics of it and the safeties of it, yeah, this isn't dangerous, I can have this. The risk, it just isn't there. And that was the thing they were pushing before, is convincing moderates that the risk of firearms, especially around children and, you know, school shootings and stuff like that, outweighed any possible potential. There was even that EPA guy that was like, oh, you're 100 times more likely to injure yourself with a firearm in the house than you are to protect yourself.
Here is the breakdown of the hidden study often discussed in this context, the CDC self-defense study controversy. In the late 1990s, specifically 1996, 1997, and 1998, the CDC included questions about defensive gun use in its Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, BRFSS, surveys across several states. The findings: the data suggested that defensive gun use was much more common than previously reported in other federal surveys, like the National Crime Victimization Survey. Estimates derived from this data suggested there could be over 1 million defensive gun uses per year in the U.S. The disappearance, the CDC, did not officially publish or highlight these specific results for over 20 years. They were rediscovered by criminologist Gary Kleck in 2018, leading to claims that the agency had suppressed data that supported the utility of gun ownership for self-defense. The CDC's stance: the CDC later removed references to high-end DGU estimates ranging from 60,000 to 2.5 million from its website in 2022, after lobbying from gun control advocates who argued that the high-end figures were based on flawed methodology.
It was something like 1 million and some incidences a year against actual like gun violence, which you can't even, because like most gun violence is suicides.
This version uses precise data from the CDC and FBI Unified Crime Reports to ensure accuracy and consistent labeling. Key breakdown in the graphic: by intent left shows that the majority of gun deaths in the U.S. are suicides, approximately 54%, followed by homicides, approximately 43%. By weapon type right focuses on homicides, highlighting that handguns are used in the vast majority of cases, approximately 59%, while rifles, which include assault weapons, and shotguns account for approximately 3% and 1% respectively. Note on Other Unknown: in official FBI data, a significant portion, approximately 37% of weapons are classified as unknown or firearm, type not stated, because local police departments may not specify the firearm type in their report.
And the fact of the matter is, people see businesses being burned, just looted, smashed, things being destroyed, people getting violently assaulted on the interstate, police being overwhelmed, and then they go to buy this firearm Because remember, that they're still under the impression that, oh, all these gun laws and stuff, those are strictly to keep firearms out of bad guys' hands. Because that's what they were sold as. So they go into the gun shop and they're like, hey, I want this Mega Blaster 5000 that shoots this really cool round. It's the last one on the shelf. Let me have it. Here's the money. Come on, let's do this. And you're like, well, it's not how it works. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to fill out this form. It's called the 4473. Here's a bunch of information. They're like, what do you mean? Like, why would I have to fill that out? This is to stop bad guys from getting guns. I'm not the bad guy. I'm like, yes, I understand that, sir. But you have to fill out this form. It's called the 4473. I'll go to prison if you don't fill out this form and I hand you over this gun. So let's sit down and let's fill this out. I sit down and I walk them through it, and they're like going through all the questions, and they fill it out, and then they're like, all right, let me get the gun. I'm like, well, you can't. I got to call it in, and I got to give the government this information, and then they're going to tell me whether or not you're approved. They're like, so the government's going to know I had this gun and stuff? I'm like, well, they're not supposed to. In 1986, they banned the record keeping. Let's be real, though. I have to hang on to this form. We have to keep this on file in the gun shop for a certain period of time. If we close down early, we have to turn these over to the government. And at any time, basically, the government can come in and see those. So they're not keeping a record, but they are. That's just the way it is. If you want, I can shred this right now. We haven't called it in. I can refund you the money, cancel the sale. Like, no, I still need this firearm. Like, I just watched my neighbor's house get burnt down. I don't want me and my children to be in a circumstance where I can't defend myself. I'm the household figure. I need to be able to defend myself. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to call this in. I'll be back in just a minute. And they'll be sitting out there waiting. I'll call it in. For whatever reason, a first-time gun buyer, like traditionally, I don't know why this is, but you get delayed at least a week. There's almost always a delay in there. I know there's not supposed to be, but I'm telling you, there is. If you're a first-time gun buyer, expect to wait a week. So I come back, I'm like, hey, oh, you got delayed. They're like, what do you mean delayed? Like, I have a completely criminal record, clean criminal record. There's absolutely nothing to see. How can I get delayed? And then, that's when I got to start like, well, it's possible somebody has a similar name with you and they have to do further review and like, here's the process. I'll call you as soon as you're cleared. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, these laws are clearly not put in place to stop bad guys. They're put in place to stop me. I'm seeing it firsthand. I'm like, well, you're not wrong. You're really not. And that's only part of it, like the background check and stuff like that. When I offered to teach them like how to shoot, and I'm like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable just turning this over. I mean, I will if that's what you want because you're American and it's your right to have this. But what I'd like to do is I have a personal range. I'd like to just take you out there and just do some basic shooting, go over some safety instructions with that. It would just blow their mind because they're like, well, the news said that you just hand these out to child killers. This is wild. This isn't at all what's happening. Yeah, it was pretty wild. And then in 2021, we hit a record of 21.1 million firearms sold. Now that's background check, so it's not actual firearms sold. A lot of times when people do a background check, they'll buy multiple guns. So on the lowest side, 21.1 million firearms sold. That's wild. The stats also said that 8.4 million of those were first-time buyers. That doesn't sound like a big deal because we have, what is it? I don't actually know how many people we have in the country. I think it's like, let me check real quick. What's the population in the America? What is the population? I can't talk. What is the population in America? So we have 340 million, so 8.4 million doesn't sound like a big deal, but understand, at least like 50% of those already own firearms. So we took 8.4 million people that were anti-gun and basically converted them. That's huge. That is absolutely awesome. And that happened in 1 year. Just 1 year. And the people that were these first-time buyers typically would never ever touch a firearm before. Like, it was literally like the anti-gun community. And women and Black Americans and Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans. That's who was coming in. Not your brother Daryl. This is my other brother Daryl. We come here to buy a 30-30. No. You still had those people coming in, but they pretty much backed away because the price of everything just went through the roof. Ammunition was overpriced. Firearms were overpriced. So that 8.4 million new firearms buyers, I think might be a little bit conservative. Because the people that already own firearms and that, yeah, someone come in for like a box of range ammunition, which wasn't there, But typically they avoided the gun shops because everything was just that overpriced. And let's face it, it answered the question for a lot of people why they would need a gun. Now, again, I believe the stats are conservative, but they're saying it added over 26 million first-time gun buyers through 2020 and 2021. That's a 2-year period. That's absolutely huge. And they're not buying these firearms for hunting. They're not buying these firearms for recreational use. They're buying these firearms strictly because they've seen an overreaching government doing things that made them sick to their stomach and question everything. So it's not hunting, it's not sporting purposes, it's self-defense. That's why they're buying those. The anti-gun arguments ring hollow when real-world threats show up at your back door. They truly, truly did. The COVID thing, that flipped so many people to being pro-gun, it is completely wild. And now today, we have another similar circumstance going on.
As some of his harshest words yet for President Trump.
The governor used his State of the State and budget address today to compare the current direction of the federal government to Nazi Germany.
Now, I believe this one's going to go a little bit more hardcore. I don't think we're going to see the huge wave of people that we've seen with the lockdowns, but I do believe it's going to convert a bunch of more people into first-time buyers. I think the numbers will be pretty similar because we should see a Trump slump like we did before, but we're really not. So that means we have a whole bunch of new first-time buyers coming in. So what's driving that, you may be asking? That's a great question, hypothetical viewer. What's going on right now is the mainstream media is pushing a couple of different narratives. One, that ICE is coming around, masked bad guys ripping people away from their families and taking them to detention camps.
Making immigration arrests in public spaces. Some wearing street clothes, using unmarked cars, and covering their faces with masks. But there's a related headline. A handful of arrests of people posing as ICE officers, in some cases carrying out assaults and robberies and even fake traffic stops.
Two, that the government has been taken over by Nazis, literally Nazis, and they're pushing all this radical stuff and they are coming after you specifically. I don't think they realize how that's affecting their base. Their base is traditionally anti-gun. We're for big restrictions, big waiting periods, doing anything we can to save the children. But now they're saying that, hey, the government is the problem here and they're going after the children and the government's taken over by this out-of-control, ideological, fascist, bad guy that you need to stand up to. And they're like, well, okay, I can stand up to that. And they're like, well, wait a minute. What am I going to do that with? My kitchen knife? No, I need a gun. So now it's entering their homes because instead of like being able to follow the riots on the TV and be like, oh, that's in Minnesota, that's 75 miles away, so it doesn't really affect me, I don't have to worry. The media is painting it that it can show up at anyone's house at any time. So now the people that were far enough away and insulated from the riots and stuff, wow, now you're not insulated anymore because they could be after you next. They could be after you right now and you wouldn't even know. They could be coming for you tomorrow. And so they're like, oh man, maybe I should buy a gun. So they're hitting all the people that the lockdowns missed. And like I said, the anti-gun movement's over. And I believe that this is the final nail in the coffin for the super restricted stuff like the NFA. Like we literally just seen politicians pushing to have silencers, short barrel rifles, and short barrel shotguns taken off of the NFA. They didn't quite get it, but they did get the tax to zero. But that's huge. Never in my life have I ever seen it politically advertised to take down a gun law. Never. It's always been, we're going to push for this law or push for that law. Most of them fail. Every once in a while, one would squeak through. But to have a push in the opposite direction, that's wild. You need to take and appreciate exactly what that means. And let's take a look at some of the numbers. So in 2015, there was 12 to 13 million background checks done. 2016, mid 13 million. 2017 to 2019, pretty much the same, 13 to 13.5 million. Boom, now we got the spike. Now it's a visible spike, it's obvious. We got 21.1 million in 2020. Then we got 18.5 million in 2021. Now here's where you're gonna see the difference. So we should have defaulted, because it's been since 2015 to 2020, that's a 5-year period, 13 million to about 13.5 million background checks every year. Well, after 2020, now we got 18 to 16 million. So what does that mean? Yeah, we do have a low one in 2023 for 15.8 million. That means every year, On average, there's about 3 million people or 3 million background checks done that wouldn't have been done before. So that's how many people we converted to be pro-gun, because in 2020 they got what they could. Whether that was a hunting rifle, a hunting shotgun, maybe it was just a baseball bat, because that was all that left. Well, now these people still want to get armed, and you can see the numbers trickle down. We didn't default back to where the base should be. The base should be about 12 to 13 million. Because it's not like our population in the country exploded. What exploded was the people that are now buying firearms. Population's the same, but now we have more background checks going on, a significant amount more. This isn't a small number. This isn't like going from 13 million to 14 million. We're going to 13 million to 18, 16, 16, 16 million. At least 3 million extra background checks are being done every year while these people are trying to play catch up to get their arsenal to where they want it to be. This is telling. And I believe this is going to spike up again now that we've had all the news about the Nazis taking over the government and them sending out their secret police and ripping children away from their families in the middle of the night while wearing masks and doing awful things like putting them in waterboarding and torturing them and like slapping little puppies and stuff. And that's the point of the whole video, is we're seeing gun laws unraveling very, very quickly, not because of like who we're electing in, but the general census of society. And it's going to continue to move forward, and ultimately that's going to take down the NFA. Like literally we just seen a government fight to have something taken off of the NFA. They didn't get it, they wound up getting the tax removed, but that's not the point. We've never seen that before, ever. It's always been fighting to try to get stuff restricted and trying to get more gun laws. So it's a whole new world. Basically what I'm getting at here. And we're winning. We're winning big. Anyways, if you'd like to help support the channel directly, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. One, I got my Cash App right here. You can do donations there. Otherwise, the best way to do it without costing you any extra money is to go down to the description, click on the affiliate link for Amazon. Even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it. Doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I'll kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.